Welcome back to the Explainer. Okay, we've got a lot of ground to cover today, so let's just dive right into it. If you've been keeping up with the whole situation over in Portland, you know it's turned into an absolute pressure cooker for the supernatural underground. I mean, the city is practically locked down. The political landscape is boiling over, and man, the very coterie we're tracking is starting to fracture right in front of our eyes. Today, we're breaking down all the massive plot threads from Session 62. We're going to untangle this wild web of alliances, betrayals, and some seriously deep-water secrets. So here's what we're looking at today. First up, we've got the macro-level disaster, which is the Portland port crisis. After that, we'll hit the Prince's decree, the absolute scramble to hunt down the felony Flat brothers, the breaking point of our coterie, and finally, those mysterious deep-water leads surfacing at the docks. All right, part one, the Portland port crisis, a city at a standstill. We really have to start by looking at this macro-level environmental pressure because it is absolutely crushing the city right now. You see, the port isn't just some mundane human logistics problem. It is the bottleneck for literally everything. It perfectly shows how just normal, everyday bureaucracy and infrastructure failures can be completely weaponized against supernatural beings. To put that into perspective, take a close look at this interrogation log from the cannery. We've got Undertaker speaking with Asutu, who you might know as the Crow. And Asutu explicitly lays it out, saying, "The accident prevents my friends from arriving. I need assurances." This is brilliant because it illustrates how our real-world infrastructure failure, a massive crane collapse blocking the port, has huge, immediate, supernatural consequences. It has basically slammed the door shut on supernatural migration flowing into the city. And, this crisis escalated incredibly fast. Just look at this timeline. Week 1, boom, you have the devastating crane collapse. By week 2, the Longshoremen Union has officially gone on strike. Their president drew a hard line, saying they won't move a single piece of cargo until the port is deemed safe. Fast forward to week 3, and the Port Authority and city officials are practically begging for funding in these desperate press conferences. Even with local unions pulling together a $3 million charitable fund, which is a lot of money, they still don't have the cash to fix the infrastructure. The city is just bleeding money. So, how on earth does the Camarilla handle a logistical nightmare of this scale? Well, they play diplomatic defense. We see in Stefan's confidential file that he gets tasked with handling Rowan, who is this art trafficker and smuggler absolutely furious about her shipments getting halted. And Stefan actually pulls it off. He uses his composure and persuasion to stall her, promising priority access the second the port reopens. It effectively takes the immediate political pressure off and keeps smugglers like her off the prince's back. It's a temporary fix, sure, kind of like a band-aid on a bullet hole, but a necessary one. Moving on to part 2, the prince's decree, exile the rabble. Because let's be real, stalling only works for so long, especially when you have mandates coming from the very top of the Camarilla in Portland. These are Prince Nineveh's exact, incredibly impactful words to the Primogen and the sheriff. She says, "Every member of the tower shall drive the rabble out, but no tradition shall be broken." She's talking about the anarchs here, specifically zeroing in on the felony Flat brothers. She wants them gone, exiled. But look closely at that second half of the sentence. No tradition shall be broken. She's literally handing them an impossible task. You have to somehow start a turf war, drive out a deeply entrenched faction, but you absolutely cannot break the Masquerade or cause even a ripple in the mortal world. Good luck with that, right? What this does is essentially trigger a citywide Cold War. On one side of the ring, you've got the Camarilla Mandate demanding the total exile of the anarchs. On the other side, the anarch resistance, who absolutely refuse to yield an inch of their territory. I mean, they aren't going to just pack their bags and wander off quietly into the night. It forces the coterie into this really tricky position where they have to rely on legal routes, financial pressure, and deep, deep investigation rather than just resorting to open street combat. Which brings us to part 3, hunting the Flat brothers, gathering intel. The coterie has their marching orders, and they immediately begin tracking their targets to figure out exactly how to push them out of Portland. Joshua gets right to work on the digital footprint side of things. He starts scraping public records, diving into the internet for photos and locations, basically trying to establish a baseline so they can use scrying and tracking later. The known felony Flat brothers targets they're zeroing in on are Angela, who's the leader and the main prize here, along with Sherry, Dee, and Victoria. But obviously, to drive them out, you gotta find them first. And finding them requires a really cool mix of just mundane detective work and supernatural power, specifically aspects. Now, at level 1, which is Sense the Unseen, it allows the vampire to attune their senses to dimensions beyond the mundane. They can detect hidden presences or dormant magic that's just sitting there in plain sight. Both Matt and Joshua rely incredibly heavily on this ability to sweep rooms for lingering supernatural energy and hidden clues while they're on the hunt. But here's where the frustration really sets in. The trail goes completely cold almost the second they start looking. When Undertaker tries to reach out, his texts just go unanswered. When they physically go out and scout these known locations, they hit a massive brick wall. Sherry's Bar, which was a major known hangout, is permanently closed. The Union Hall over on Foster and 64th, dead empty. Not a single kindred in sight, and the building is literally up for sale. The targets have completely vanished into the shadows. They saw the Camarillas move coming a mile away. All right, part 4, coterie under pressure, fracture point. Because when you put people under this much intense, citywide political pressure, internal dynamics are bound to crack. And oh man, do we have a massive ideological clash brewing here. On one side, we have Undertaker's conviction. One of his absolute core, unshakable tenets is that he keeps his word. He gave his word to Angela, the Anarch leader, that he would handle negotiations and keep her faction safe. But stacked up right against that, we have Stefan's duty. Stefan is a primogen. His duty is to follow the Camarilla prince, and the prince just ordered Angela's complete and utter exile. So the Undertaker is shoved into this corner, a situation entirely beyond his control, where he's basically being forced to break his deal, and he absolutely hates it. And you guys, that tension boils over into actual physical violence. Right as a really tense meeting is breaking apart, the Undertaker just snaps. Now, to be clear, he isn't in a frenzy, but he is completely consumed by rage. He storms straight across the room, closing all that distance Stefan had tried to put between them, and he throws a full force punch right at Stefan. Let's break down this chaotic sequence step by step, because it happens in a flash. First, Undertaker charges. Instantly, Matt stands up and throws himself in the path, trying to protect Stefan. Then, Zane intervenes, stepping in just enough to break the momentum of the strike. And finally, Stefan deliberately stands his ground, taking the glancing hit straight to the shoulder. It was wild. The coterie literally had to jump in to physically shield each other from one of their own. Which leaves us asking a really critical question. Can the coterie even survive this kind of fracture? I mean, when trust breaks down to the point of literal physical altercations over political mandates, how do you just go back to working together the next night? It's a massive, glaring rift that they are going to have to mend really fast if they want to survive this city. And finally, part 5, the deep water leads, shadows on the docks. Because despite all that internal drama, the investigation has to continue, and some incredibly dangerous new clues are starting to emerge from those chaotic docks. So, new intel acquired from Asutu reveals some critical information regarding former Prince Cayenne's missing cargo. The main objective right now is tracing this missing manifest. The new lead they've identified is a female, middle-aged witness with frizzy hair who was last located at the Port Authority office's exterior smoking area. This is a big deal because it connects the massive, overarching mystery of the former prince's disappearance directly back to the ongoing labor and infrastructure crisis happening at the Port Authority. Thanks to some really incredible sniffing around by Matt, 2 major leads have surfaced among the dock workers themselves. Suspect 1 is James, a guy who has been on the job for less than a year, but somehow magically got himself elected vice president of the local longshoremen. Suspect 2 is Fernando, an underwater inspector who has just mysteriously vanished. Let's look a little closer at both of these guys. First up is James. His astronomical rise to power is highly, highly suspicious, so Undertaker decides to apply some metaphorical and, frankly, physical pressure. He has his retired union contacts bring James right into the Last Rites biker bar. Once there, Undertaker uses his massive, intimidating presence to strong-arm and interrogate the young VP, hammering him with difficult questions regarding the union strike and their potential ties to the Flat Brothers that James can't just hand-wave away. But Fernando might actually be the most chilling lead of all. You see, he is one of only 3 dive-trained pole inspectors whose entire job is to check the underwater infrastructure of the port. And the crazy part? He vanished without a single trace the exact moment that crane collapsed and the crisis escalated. Undertaker doesn't waste any time and immediately dispatches his men to track down this missing scuba worker. Which leaves us with this final, very provocative thought. An underwater inspector goes missing right as a massive crane collapses into the river, halting all supernatural migration and basically tearing the city apart from the inside. Seriously, what monstrous secret is hiding beneath the waters of Portland? Well, that is all the time we have for this explainer. Keep your eyes locked on those docks, everyone, because this pressure cooker is absolutely about to pop.